This week on Jerusalem Dateline, the war of words between Iran and Saudi Arabia takes on a new dimension with an Iranian video simulating an attack on the Arabian Peninsula. Plus, Bibi Netanyahu speaks to the foreign press about new realities in the Middle East and the annual bird migration through the land of Israel, one of nature's wonders. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Hostility towards Israel may be growing in multinational organizations like the United Nations. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says individually more countries want diplomatic ties with the Jewish state than ever before. Speaking to an annual meeting of foreign journalists, Netanyahu noted that in 1975 Israel basically had relations with the U.S., Canada, and Western European countries.
China, India, Japan, Russia, just about every country in Africa, countries in Latin America, and increasingly with the Arab countries.
Netanyahu said there are two reasons countries want ties with Israel. First, help in fighting terrorism, and second, Israel's technological prowess. Netanyahu also welcomed a new German-built submarine that could be used to strike back with nuclear missiles if a nuclear attack is ever launched on the Jewish state. At a ceremony in Haifa, Netanyahu said Israel's goal is superiority on all military fronts. He hinted the submarine could give Israel second strike capability in the event of a nuclear attack and reinforce its military strength.
Our submarine fleet will act as a deterrent to our enemies who want to destroy us. They will not achieve their aim. They need to know that Israel is capable of striking with very great strength at all those who would harm it.
Foreign reports say Israel's submarines are armed with nuclear missiles, while Netanyahu has said that the subs are, quote, a defensive force in the stormy reality of the Middle East. One of those storms in the Middle East is the growing confrontation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, with more nations joining the battle. For example, the chief of the army of Pakistan threatened to strike back and, quote, wipe Iran off the map if Iran threatens the territory of Saudi Arabia. It's the latest sign that tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia are spreading beyond the Middle East. Thousands of Iranians demonstrated against Saudi Arabia for executing a top Shiite cleric. They carried pictures of the executed Sheikh Namir, and many shouted, "Death to the House of Saud."
Saudi Arabia has collapsed and has been isolated. It has shown its true nature and has joined the club of wickedness and brutality. It has proved its anti-human nature to the world. Those countries who cooperate with Saudi Arabia will be humiliated, and human society has no respect for them.
In Cairo, the Arab League held an emergency meeting of foreign ministers. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister said Iran's attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran after the execution of Sheikh Namir was the latest incident in decades of aggression. After the attack, Saudi Arabia cut diplomatic ties with Iran. He warned Iran risked being rejected by all the Arab countries of the region.
If Iran wants to have a positive role in the region, they have to deal with their neighbors. Like it happens everywhere in the world, they should have good relations and not interfere with others' issues, rejecting terror and not supporting it. If Iran would do so, it would be possible to live peacefully in the region as neighbors, but if they continue to support sectarian aggression, terror, and violence, they will face the rejection of the Arab countries.
The proxy wars, as well as the propaganda war, or what some people call the soft war, are likely to intensify. For example, an Iranian group posted an animated film on the internet simulating a missile attack on Saudi Arabia, including an attack on their main oil fields. It could be the next chapter in this growing animosity between these two Middle East giants. The animated video simulates an Iranian rocket attack using missiles fired from Yemen. The attack is designed to cripple Saudi Arabia on multiple fronts. The video reveals the GPS coordinates of Saudi Arabia's main oil facility at the Gower field. then shows the missiles destroying the Saudi Aramco facility and setting the area on fire. It also simulates attacks on Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh, that it calls the Freemason Tower. Then it shows missiles striking the Saudis' main airbase and crippling its anti-missile system. An Iranian expert told CBN News the group behind the film doesn't get funding from the government, but it is affiliated with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and gets its inspiration from them. The rivalry between Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran intensified when the Saudis executed a top Shiite cleric. Iran followed by allowing protesters to ransack the Saudi Arabian embassy in Tehran, prompting Saudi Arabia to cut diplomatic relations. Pakistan then weighed in on the side of the Saudis, saying they would wipe Iran off the map if Iran threatened the territorial integrity of Saudi Arabia. The concern for many in the region is that the rivalry between the two Middle East titans will escalate from a video to a direct confrontation on the battlefield. Another concern many have in the region is the fact that Iran holds an apocalyptic vision of Islam. It's an ideology that believes they can hasten the return of their Islamic Messiah called the Mahdi by creating chaos in the world. Best-selling author Joel Rosenberg discussed this ideology as well as his latest political thriller with CBN founder Pat Robertson on the 700 Club.
This is the second in a series.
That's right. The first was called The Third Target.
Yeah.
It's about a New York Times foreign correspondent who hears a rumor that ISIS, the Islamic State, has captured chemical weapons in Syria and is planning a genocidal attack, as well as it turns out, the reporter finds himself uncovering a plot to capture and potentially behead the President of the United States.
You focused in on Syria. How come?
I decided, if you look at the goals, the stated goals of the Islamic State, and you say, what if they began to come true? That's what this series is about. The leaders of Iran and the leaders of the Islamic State are not just radical Islam. This is what I call apocalyptic Islam. The leaders of both movements, Iran and ISIS, believe that the end of days has come, that their Islamic Messiah, known as the Mahdi, is coming at any moment, and that they need to commit genocide in order to create the caliphate, this global Islamic kingdom. But what's our president doing? Not my fictional president in First Hostage. The president of the United States today is refusing to meet with Jordan's King Abdullah, who's in Washington this week. He's too busy. Too busy for our most faithful Sunni Arab ally. The Saudis feel like the President of the United States is cut and run. The Jordanians feel this way. The Egyptians, the Israelis have the worst relationship with this president in the history of the country. So the region feels scared by two existential threats: Iran and ISIS, and this apocalyptic Islam.
You know, idea of the Iranians, and you remember when the head of Iran made that statement in front of the United Nations. He said he could feel the presence of this being. But they feel that he's alive, and that there has to be a disaster in the world, and then he will come and fix it.
That's right.
But the Sunnis don't believe in it. Do they believe in the Mahdi at all? Or?
They do. They don't believe that the Mahdi, their Messiah, is the 12th Imam. That's a Shia spin on it. That, because the split originally from are Muslims following the family of Muhammad after Muhammad's death? That's the Shias, or the disciples of Muhammad? That's the Sunnis. Coming back to the Pakistanis, the Saudis are talking openly about buying nuclear weapons from the Pacs. Why? Because they fear that the President Obama has given Iran's apocalyptic Muslims two pathways to nuclear weapons in 2015. One, if Iran cheats on the deal, but the other, if the Iranians keep the deal and in 10 years the restrictions are all removed and Iran can build as many nuclear weapons as possible. This has been a catastrophic year in U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. The novel, The Third Target, and now The First Hostage, takes you through the eyes of a reporter inside this story to understand what might happen, worst case scenarios, if our leaders don't understand the threats that we face. The president doesn't understand it. But
and the Iranians, at least Ahmadinejad was saying that that if we lose half of our population, so what? We'll destroy Israel, we'll wipe them off the map, and then the Mahdi will come anyhow. So they don't mind sacrificing millions of people.
That's right. That's the difference. They want genocide. They believe that you have to destroy all of Israel, all the Jews, and all of the United States and all of Christendom, and then their Messiah will come.
Can you name many people in our government in higher positions who share your point of view or our point of view about apocalyptic Islam?
I've been working my way through the presidential candidates.
Yeah.
I've been spending time with them. I'm meeting with them, emailing them, because this is significantly and substantively different. This is so dangerous. And it's doubly dangerous when you have a president, a national security system, and front runners to replace him who neither understand it, don't care, aren't studying it.
It is called The First Hostage, Joel Rosenberg. Thanks, buddy.
Great to be
God
with you.
bless
Thank
you.
you, Pat.
Thank you.
Coming up, find out what nations pose the greatest threats to Christians around the world. Open Doors released its 2016 World Watch list of Christian persecution. They declared North Korea as the most dangerous country for Christian persecution in the world, with Iraq and Eritrea not far behind. Abigail Robertson gives us more details on the full list.
Global conflicts and terror movements made 2015 the worst year for religious persecution in modern history. Open Doors named the 50 most dangerous countries in the world for Christians, gathering information from people on the ground.
In the 5 areas that we measure, violence against Christians, discrimination, pressure, all of these different things, it's just more difficult in every continent, in every country.
In 2015, global Christian persecution substantially increased. For the 14th year in a row, North Korea remains the top most dangerous country in the world for Christians, with the other 9 out of 10 countries topping this list being controlled by some form of Islamic extremist government. And that extremism is expanding, becoming the lead generator of persecution for 35 of the 50 countries.
We need to identify that not every Muslim is an extremist, but we still have to know that the Muslim community needs to speak to extremism within its community because it is greatly affecting violence against Christians.
Gladys, a Kenyan Christian, became involved with Open Doors after the terror group Al-Shabaab mutilated her husband with a machete for being a pastor. She moved quickly to forgive them as the first part of her mourning process.
The journey of forgiveness started immediately. So you forgive, it's like you release yourself. You open up to God to work to you, in you.
Gladys says while the situation is getting worse, she believes non-extremist Muslims are beginning to stand with Christians to help protect religious liberties in Kenya. Open Doors is asking President Obama to make this issue a priority in his final year in office. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
A New Year's Eve attack on scores of women has one German town on edge. Thousands took to the streets of Cologne to protest the string of vicious sexual attacks by men, reportedly of Arab and North African descent. More than 200 women have filed a criminal complaint alleging molestation and groping. The attacks come as German leaders face mounting pressure to deal with the influx of migrants from the Middle East. George Thomas has the details.
Tensions are rising in Germany's 4th largest city. Protesters took to the streets of Cologne over the weekend, furious about a string of shocking sexual assaults.
I am here today because we're all very sad about the things that happened here.
The attacks happened during New Year's celebrations in Cologne's main square, when hundreds of young men, reportedly of Arab and North African origin, attacked scores of women. More than 500 women have filed criminal complaints, 40% of them saying they were groped and molested by men. Cologne has been on edge since last Friday, when reports surfaced that refugees who recently arrived in the country were among the suspected attackers. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel is facing tremendous pressure after allowing more than 1 million refugees into the country in 2015. Over the weekend, some 2,000 anti-Muslim protesters also took to the streets, demanding that Germany closes its borders to refugees.
I am shaken by the events of New Year's Eve, but it is not only about that incident. What is happening at the moment in Germany is concerning.
A counter-demonstration defending refugees took place simultaneously in another part of the city.
We're upset and angry as women of the sexual violence that happened here in Cologne on New Year's Eve. But we're even more upset and angry that there are racists that are using this for their racist propaganda, because sexual violence is a global issue.
Chancellor Merkel's popularity has dropped since refusing to limit the number of refugees coming into Germany. Almost 3/4 of those polled in a recent survey say migration was the most important issue for the government to deal with this year. Merkel announced a plan Saturday making it easier to deport refugees who commit crimes following the sexual assault attacks almost 2 weeks ago. George Thomas, CBN News.
Up next, what's behind the current wave of terror in Israel? It's more personal than you think. In just 4 months, Palestinian terrorists have killed more than 25 Israelis and wounded nearly 300 more. This has happened on the streets, at the market, and even at work. An anxious public is wondering what's behind these attacks. Throughout this wave of terror, security camera footage has documented the way Palestinians have attacked Israelis. Since September, they've carried out more than 100 stabbings, nearly 40 shootings, and more than 20 car ramming attacks. Anat Berko is a criminologist, a lieutenant colonel in the reserves, and a member of Israel's Knesset. She spent years interviewing Palestinians, many of them women, who carried out terror attacks. While many blame what they call the oppression of Israel's occupation, Berko says it's often much more personal.
I found in many cases that it was something that women tried to escape from: imposed marriage, incest, or problems inside the family, or tried to just escape from the house. And many of them, I interviewed many women, and they told me we have much more freedom in the Israeli prison than in our houses.
Berko says the Islamic promise of paradise often drives these attacks.
It's to go to a place that is much better, Jannah. Jannah, which means paradise. It's like for the males, they'll have the 72 virgins. For the girls, she cannot say, as they told me, I cannot say, I want to have sex. So they are speaking about to be one of the virgins, and if she was married, she'll meet her husband. If he was an abusive husband, he will go to Jahannam, to hell, and she'll go to paradise.
Berko sees a common thread in the terror attacks in Israel and the recent ones in San Bernardino, Paris, and Philadelphia.
But there is a problem right now that the West face, and they don't want to admit it, that there is something in this collective. I call it in my book, Shahada Mania. Shahada, it's the obsessive to carry out istishhad, self-sacrifice. And mania, you know what is mania?
Berko says in this battle, Israel and the West are on the same side.
Israel is the good side in this equation. We are part of the West. We are the front line of the West. This is something that we need to stop and to know that in Paris, that in New York, and in Tel Aviv, and in Jerusalem, the same enemy, the same phenomenon. And it's not about Israel, it's about all of us.
Up next, bird watchers from all over the world come to see one of Israel's natural wonders, its annual bird migration. Believe it or not, about 500 million birds migrate through Israel twice each year. The country lies along one of the world's major migration routes. It's a paradise for bird watchers. The Hula Valley hosts millions of birds and thousands of visitors each year.
This is one of the richest sites in the world for bird watching.
Israel sort of is a junction between three continents.
The Bible mentions the bird migration as part of a metaphor. Even the stork in the sky knows her seasons, and the turtle dove and the swift and the thrush observe the time of their migration. Some 400 species of birds stop for refueling, and a fraction even winters here, including 30 to 45,000 cranes. Listening to them talk, one can understand why King Hezekiah said he chattered like a crane. In fact, it's not just noise. Experts say crane parents and chicks can actually recognize each other's voices. 20 years ago, there were hardly any cranes here because the natural swamps would drain for farmland. The ground didn't work for agriculture, however, so experts restored part of the lake.
And the answer was essentially to give it back to nature. And so the project has gone sort of in a circle, and we are back to trying to renovate, trying to sort of reproduce what existed here in the past.
That and a special feeding project brought the cranes back, along with the visitors.
This is a wonderful opportunity for us to educate people about birds, about nature. I think that you don't need to be a bird lover when you are coming here, but you are definitely a bird lover when you are going out of this site.
Visitors to Agamon Hahula Reserve can ride the safari wagon into the midst of the cranes. Guides say there's no place else in the world to see so many cranes in such a small area. And bird watchers come from all over to see the phenomenon.
You have to experience this and come and see thousands and thousands and thousands of cranes.
If you're a birder, I don't think you could find a better place to come to see the variety of species, as well as the atmosphere and the beauty of the place is just unrivaled in any place in the world.
The bird migration is an amazing sight here in Israel. Well, that's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.